Hello, my name is Darcey Bowser and I am a master's student at Winchester University, studying animal welfare, behaviour, ethics and law. Today I'm going to discuss some of the key welfare issues relating to the management of competition horses. In this presentation, I will be explaining how competition horses are typically managed, the welfare concerns relating to this, and identifying any potential solutions by exploring restrictions on their 4 basic needs and applying the 5 domains model. Horses are social animals who in the wild choose their herds and some even form pair bonds. They have 4 basic needs: social contact, social companionship, freedom of movement and free access to roughage. Welfare issues can arise when any of these basic needs are compromised, and these can manifest as behavioural indicators such as stereotypies or aggression, or even health issues such as gastric ulcers. Horses display key indicators of stress or anxiety which often go unnoticed, resulting in behavioural issues escalating. This can further result in welfare issues if their behaviour becomes unmanageable. The UK is currently facing an equine welfare crisis, with numbers upwards of 7,000 horses facing neglect or suffering. It has been reported in a 2009 survey that one of the top 3 reasons for horses requiring rehoming or becoming abandoned is unmanageable behaviour. Although there are still breeds of horses referred to as feral, such as the Dartmoor and New Forest ponies, horses are now predominantly domesticated, which poses many challenges to equines. It is important to understand the evolution of horses, how they behave in the wild, and what motivates their behaviour to manage them better in a domestic setting. In the wild, a horse's time budget will be comprised of sleeping for 12% of their day on average, with 30 minutes of REM sleep, and graze for 12 to 18 hours, foraging for specific plants to provide them with adequate nutrients. They are social animals who, when living freely, will choose their herds, and many will form pair bonds. 46 to 66.8% of their time budget will be spent feeding and performing natural behaviours. They are grazing herbivores, so their digestive system has evolved to consume high-fibre, fresh forage diets. Any deviations from natural equine behaviours being displayed can indicate welfare problems. Modern management routines typically seen on competition yards often see horses stabled for up to 23 hours a day, with 1 hour of exercise. Horses are fed at times convenient to caregivers, which tends to be once in the morning and once in the evening, without constant access to roughage. Compared with free-ranging horses, only 16.5% of their time budget is spent performing foraging behaviours. Owners and caregivers also dictate the nutritional value of an equine's food, and there is a tendency to overfeed concentrates, meaning that horses will have excess energy and can lead to behavioural problems. You can see an example of a common housing type for competition horses. These are single stalls in a barn with little to no social contact, only visibility of another horse. Often horses are stabled next to horses they would not choose to socialise with in the wild, which can become settling. It is common practice for these horses to receive little turnout and have little to no access to foraging opportunities. There are several reasons why this style of management is implemented, such as horses being kept in areas of restricted access to grazing and a reluctance to damage the land in periods of poor weather. However, the main reason is an owner's inclination to avoid their horses becoming injured, particularly during an aggressive encounter. Contrary to this concern, several studies have reported that injuries amongst horses who are kept in group housing or semi-feral and feral herds are minor, with blemishes being a result of brief hoof-to-coat contact rather than kick or bite wounds. In fact, horses in these settings tend to actively avoid conflict when possible, as conflict depletes their energy and poses risks to their safety. Furthermore, Feist's 1971 study of prior mountain horses found that only 3 of 270 horses died from an infected injury that resulted from an aggressive encounter. In contrast to this, 64% of 58 thoroughbred and quarter horse farms reported injuries in a survey. These injuries were attributed to play fighting as opposed to aggression, which may be a common misinterpretation of equine agonistic behaviour. Therefore, it becomes clear how the restrictions of domestication can lead to the rise of aggression levels and therefore cause a high prevalence of injuries, meaning that management systems aiming to reduce injuries may be counterproductive. Horses have 4 basic needs. These are the need for social contact, the the need for social companionship, the need for freedom of movement, and the need for free access to roughage, which all form the basis for the external stimuli that motivates equine behaviour. By applying the 5 domains model as a welfare assessment, potential welfare concerns can be identified. Now identify the areas of welfare concern in competition horse management by assessing the restrictions on their 4 basic needs. Free access to roughage. Horses have evolved as grazing herbivores. They are physically adapted to a high fibre and fresh forage diet. In the wild, they will spend up to 18 hours of their time budget performing foraging behaviour, which encompasses all feeding behaviours such as grazing, browsing, sniffing, biting, chewing, or ingesting food. It is a high priority basic need for an equine to continuously take in roughage, yet restrictive feeding practices that see roughage provided only twice a day is still common practice in many competition horses' management routines. Despite the previously reported negative health and welfare implications such as an increased risk of colic, weight loss, or gastric ulcers. Alongside this, due to horses in the UK predominantly being stabled, it means that access to roughage is largely determined by owners and caregivers. Restrictive feeding means that a horse cannot occupy an adequate amount of their time budget with eating and displaying foraging behaviour. Therefore, they will spend more time standing, which can lead to the development of displacement behaviours, which include stereotypical behaviours such as wood chewing or wind sucking, and agonistic behaviours. Berla et al. In 2016 reported that restricting an equine's access to roughage leads to a high prevalence of agonistic behaviours, which is further supported by Benhargelis et al. Study in 2009 of Arabian breeding mares, who displayed higher levels of aggression and antagonistic social interactions when access to roughage was restricted. In contrast with this, a study by Thorne et al. In 2005 found that providing horses with multiple different forage types led to a more frequent and prolonged periods of natural foraging behaviour compared with horses fed a single type of roughage. Also, hay nets enable a greater opportunity for natural foraging behaviour to be expressed, and Berla et al. In 2016 also reports that providing roughage via hay nets compared to on the floor will lead to fewer agonistic behaviours being displayed. There are further welfare implications with regard to nutrition. For example, the presence of a routine can also lead to the development of stereotypies and increased aggression rates. Peters et al. In 2012 reports that horses who were fed according to a set routine showed a higher prevalence of anticipatory behaviours such as locomotion, arousal, investigation, and increased heart rate. Furthermore, competition horses will receive a hard feed up to 3 times a day, which is very high in concentrates and can lead to excess energy, resulting in behavioural issues, and also exposes an equine to potential allergens, diseases, and other health issues such as choke and overheating. There is also the risk that on the occasion a horse does receive turnout time, the land may be too nutrient dense, meaning that a horse may consume up to 5% of its body weight compared to 2 to 2.5% as it would in the wild. This could lead to further health implications such as obesity or laminitis, and could result in further restrictions being performed on roughage provisions. With regards to freedom of movement, stabling can induce many behavioural problems in equines due to the restrictions on their basic need, such as confinement and social isolation, which have been linked to the development of stereotypies and emotional reactivity. According to Hockenhull and Creighton in 2014, stabling horses for longer periods, such as 13 to 16 hours, is associated with higher levels of aggressive behaviour and also handling issues. Stabling arrangements that do not allow an equine the ability to socialise can also lead to higher aggression levels when reintroduced to conspecifics. A similar conclusion was reached by Christensen et al. In 2002 in a study of stallions, where those who were stabled in single stalls showed a higher prevalence of aggressive behaviours compared to stallions stabled in a group who showed more subtle agonistic interactions. Moreover, Hockenhull and Creighton in 2014 also report that stabling arrangements that allow visibility of other equines as well as some physical contact but restrict their ability for full body contact, including the ability to groom, can lead to high frustration levels and high aggression levels, which can be seen to impact their welfare. As previously mentioned, this is typically how horses are stabled on competition yards, with little to no social contact but visibility. So therefore we can see how this type of housing method may be detrimental to their welfare. Social contact and social companionship. Turnout group composition within domesticated environments rarely emulates that of a natural environment, as caregivers can determine the enclosure size, herd number, age, and sex. If horses do receive any turnout time, it is common for the turnout areas to be high density, which is shown to increase aggression levels as submissive animals are not able to escape, alongside frequent invasion of personal space. It has been reported in studies that aggressive and dominant behaviour in domesticated equines is often a result of lack of space and frustration by having to cohabit with horses they would not socialise with in the wild, as well as competing over valuable resources. So because of this, owners will try to reduce injuries by not turning their horses out, or if they do, turning them out into smaller or solo pens. As horses are social animals and herd animals, this can lead to hypervigilance and also less time spent grazing. However, Hockenhull and Creighton in 2014 reported an interesting finding that solo turnout reduces the prevalence of locomotor stereotypies during stabling, and horses who are turned out regularly alone may not socially bond to conspecifics, so therefore are less likely to anticipate their arrival, leading to less heightened emotional states. This could potentially form the basis for future research into a compromise between upholding welfare whilst also reducing injury occurrence. In addition to the ways in which the management of competition horses impacts their welfare by restricting the basic needs, a further way in which their welfare can be affected is by failing to recognise the key signs of stress and anxiety that they are displaying. In 2022, Rogers and Bell discussed the welfare implications that failing to recognise stress and anxiety has on equines in their recent study. It concludes that by failing to recognise these key indicators, owners and handlers will continue to engage with horses in a way that causes negative emotional states, and subsequently unwanted behaviours will develop. Early signs of stress include eye wrinkling, twitching and blinking, wide or triangulated eyes, ear position, muscular tension, elimination, avoidance, and tail swishing. However, the study found that these signs were very poorly recognised and that fear and anxiety were mostly noticed in the more extreme behaviours, although these were also often mislabelled. If these key indicators are ignored, an equine's behaviour can escalate. As previously mentioned, unwanted behaviours are one of the main reasons why horses become neglected or abandoned. Furthermore, if their behaviour escalates, it may subject them to inappropriate handling, training, and restraint techniques, which can further impact their welfare. A study by Pearson in 2017 reports that one of the main ways in which veterinarians deal with horses displaying unwanted behaviours is through chemical restraint. However, after they watched an educational video regarding learning theory, it had a positive impact on the way in which they dealt with horses displaying these behaviours, which will subsequently improve their welfare. Similarly, horses displaying stereotypical behaviour are often subjected to additional husbandry procedures in an attempt to reduce these behaviours, such as crib collars and anti-weave bars, despite there being little to no scientific evidence to prove their efficacy. There are several ways in which equine welfare can be improved in competition yards. A practical solution in minimising the behavioural and welfare implications caused by single-stall stabling arrangements could be the provision of group housing. Another suggestion is providing foraging enrichment during both stabling and turnout time, with emerging studies showing promising results for equine welfare, as it increases the opportunity for natural foraging behaviours to be expressed. Furthermore, improving education and understanding of equine learning theory has proven to be a way of improving equine welfare during husbandry procedures. Turnout time needs to be increased, especially for horses being stabled for up to 23 hours a day. However, there is an important emphasis placed on allowing a horse enough time to habituate to their environment, as some studies, such as one by Hockenhull and Creighton, have found behavioural problems associated with turning horses out for between 17 to 20 hours per day, as they are typically only brought in just for riding and basic handling and not given enough time to habituate to their environment. This is definitely an area for more scientific investigation. Although the five domains model provides a comprehensive method of assessing welfare by enabling individual analysis of each domain and their impact on welfare, there is currently no standardised equine quality of life assessment framework in place. The development of an evidence-based system using key behavioural indicators that can accurately assess an equine's emotional state is becoming increasingly important. Stereotypies, unwanted behaviours, and aggressive behaviours can have serious consequences for both horses and humans, such as the use of positive punishment, injuries, and stress. So it is important to understand the factors that contribute to the prevalence of these behaviours, and when the causal factors have been identified, changes to management systems are necessary to minimise the negative emotional states and improve overall equine welfare.